Welcome to the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I'm your host, Lyndsay Dowd. My goal is to help train leaders and sales organizations how to manage and deliver results with empathy, compassion, and kindness. Let's get started. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. And we are so fortunate today to have our beautiful guest, Cicely Simpson. And Cicely is a rare treasure. She has an incredible background. And I'm just going to read you a little bit of her bio. It was so long, but I'm going to try and get you some of the salient points. So Cicely's changing the way people understand their roles in their own careers in her 25-year career. And Cicely has made her mark on the leadership team in every position she's had. Today, she endeavors to show everyone from CEOs to students how they can carve out a permanent space at the table. And let me just tell you a little bit more. She is a seasoned public operative, now working in her fourth presidential administration. She has served on prominent roles such as legislative director for 2 congressmen, veteran of the C-suite, formerly vice president of government affairs at Dunkin Brands, formerly executive vice president of public affairs for the restaurant industry, and now as founder and CEO of Summit Public Affairs. I could go on and on. Welcome, Cicely.
Long way of saying I've been around for a while. Thank you, Lyndsay. It's a pleasure to be on, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
Well, you are in good company too. I'm a fossil alongside. I won't call you a fossil, but 25 years myself, so we're in that category. So would you do us the honor of telling us your story and just a little bit of how you got to where you are today? You can do it any way you like.
Sure, absolutely. Well, as you said, I've spent the last 25 years in the legal field, business and politics. By the way, none of those transitions were planned. So happy to tell that part of the story as well. I've had multiple doors open for me that has allowed me to switch careers and switch jobs multiple times. So I am a small town rural girl here in Tennessee that made my way to Washington, Lyndsay, 20 years ago. Like you said, I've worked on Capitol Hill. I've worked for very large corporate brands. I have absolutely represented the restaurant industry, and now I've made the transition to entrepreneur, not only continuing my work in Washington, but now I have the absolute blessing of a lifetime to be able to take my lessons, career lessons that I've learned in my career, and now help others on their professional journey as well. So I now have written a book, Pull Up Your Chair with Forbes Books, have a podcast, have a coaching program, and have just been truly blessed to be able to take the lessons I've learned. And Lyndsay, you're like me, nobody probably taught us. We kind of did trial and error. And now I've taken those lessons and I'm helping others so that others don't have the trial and error, but they have the exact strategies they need to succeed.
Gosh, that is what so many people need right now. And I see so many people, our age and younger and even older that are making these major career pivots. And I know that that's something you coach on. So give some morsels of wisdom of what would you say to someone who's taking that new path? Give them a good bit of advice on where they should start or focus their energy.
Well, that's a timely question, actually, because I have a couple of folks who've come to me recently, to your point, who want to make that pivot. But you know what, Lyndsay, the piece that people rush to is the what. They want to go to immediately what's next. But then I start asking them, okay, well, look at the who and look at the why. Who are you? So what do you bring to the table that no one else can, right? What is your personal value proposition? Because that's what people are buying into. A lot of people can do the job, but who's the person that they want to sit next to and talk to every day? That question absolutely stumps everybody I ask that question of. It's where I start my coaching program is we have to work through the who you are. That's not your sales numbers. And it's not, what you accomplished last year. And it's not the things that, we're so conditioned to tie our self-worth to our job.
Yes.
And so when you're making a career pivot, right? Exactly. So when you're making a career pivot, people say they immediately go to the what because they latch on to the job. And it's like, that's not where you start. Well, and then as you're kind of working through that, exactly, you got to go to the why, like, what is the source of that pivot and why do you want to do it? But there's such a reluctance. I mean, it takes me a few weeks to work with people to really kind of, peel back those layers, Lyndsay, to say, because every question is through the lens of their job. And I'm like, okay, but I'm going to challenge you a little bit here. take the job off the table. And I mean, it's a real work in progress. So for the folks who are looking to pivot right now, I just did a video on this on LinkedIn. I want to say last week, maybe. But it was, you want to rush to the what, and you want to immediately say what's next, but you got to back up. You got to back up and say, who are you and why do you want to make that pivot? Because if you can't answer the who and the why, you'll never get to the what. And then the how is where I come in, which is how do you make the pivot and what are the, pieces you need to do that. But it starts fundamentally with a person who wants to make that pivot. And that's a hard self-reflection piece to go through.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. And I see a lot of people that are making these pivots that are like, okay, I think I found my niche. I think I know what I want to do, but maybe they lack the business acumen, or maybe they're not sure how to generate the leads, or who are their contacts, and understanding who your audience really needs to be, I think is a critical piece to success. So that's wonderful. I want to talk a little bit about coaching. I do some coaching. So the role of coaching, the role of coaching and why that's so important to somebody starting out, just give me some insight on that from your perspective.
I've always had coaches because I grew up playing sports, but I kind of make the analogy over to your professional journey and your personal journey now. Like when I worked for both Dunkin, but also with the restaurant industry, like I would ask for a coach. I would purposely say, can you get me a career coach? And it goes to your question, which is, I want it to be better. What do I not know that I need to know? And I want somebody to help me perform better so that I'm reaching my fullest potential. But if I don't know how to do that myself, I want someone to see, like I tell my clients, I can see your potential. I have to help you see it. I've always sought a coach, Lyndsay, and I think the value of a coach is making you better because they can see things in you can't see in yourself. And the value of coaching in my career has been phenomenal. So now to be able to give that back and help others see potential in themselves that they can't see right now is a phenomenal transformation.
Yeah, I've experienced the same with the people that I've coached, and I get as much out of it as they do because they give me these teaching points and these stories of, okay, so you're compromising your values completely. How are we not going to do that? and use that for the next person. It's for someone like you and me, I think it really feels good when you have that kind of validation. No, I'm doing the right thing for this person, and this is really important. That's great. Can you talk a little bit about your book?
Sure. Pull up your chair. It's called Pull Up Your Chair, 5 Strategies to Change the Trajectory of Your Career. And look, my day job is in politics in Washington. And so the book and the program and the podcast, all of it's based on a famous quote, Lyndsay, by the first African-American Congresswoman. Yes. Her name was Shirley Chisholm. And she said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair.
I love that.
And I feel like you and I are meeting, but I feel, I've done a lot of research into your coaching and kind of what you do. I feel like people like us, we haven't waited to be invited to the table. We've kind of pulled up our chair. We've made our own way. We've charted our course. So the premise of the book is I walk through the 5 strategies. So I took that quote and I developed a career coaching program, 5 strategies, one for each of the letter of the word chair. And so it's a year-long coaching program. I mean, we spend weeks going through the 5 strategies, but it's working through those 5 strategies that's going to lead to the transformation that people seek. Again, that then gets them to the level of success they desire. So that quote was really profound for me a couple of years ago, and it resonated with me. So when I got the chance to write the book, I said, I feel like I want to share this message of how people need to stop waiting to be invited to do something and do it on their own initiative.
Yeah, I love the quote. And I saw that on your website and I was like, oh, kindred spirits. But yes, I'll pull up a stool, a folding chair, a cushion, doesn't matter. Get there, be a part of it. It's so true.
Exactly.
You also had a quote on your website and you say, leaders instill in their people a hope for success and a belief in themselves. Positive leaders empower people to accomplish their goals. I'd love to get your thoughts because this audience is all about putting the heartbeat back in the head count. Talk to me about positive leadership and the impact that that's had on you.
definitely had great leaders in my career. I've had really bad leaders in my career in toxic workplaces, and have, been back and forth between. So I always say, look, good when you see it, and bad when you see it. But I think a lot of the stories I share in the book are the positive leaders I've had in my career that helped me develop my own career and leadership potential. And that takes a very special kind of leader who's not all about driving the result, but is all about the people and developing people and giving them an opportunity, to find themselves. And so one of the things I always coach my teams on, Lyndsay, is how to have impact. Influence is temporary, but impact is lasting. How do you become a person of impact, both in your personal and professional lives? And then you really start to pour into people, get to know their story. And I feel like the positive leadership piece, part of that's vulnerability. Yes. Again, part of that's helping people see potential in themselves, potential that they can't see in themselves. And so I love taking the moments to coach in the moment when I've had teams in my career, but I've also taken the opportunity when I've had positive leaders, I've taken the opportunity to learn from them. And I tell one particular, story in the book of a leader that I worked for. We're still good friends, even though we haven't seen each other in a while, but we're still good friends. That was years ago. But that person taught me the value of not taking no for an answer. So it was, you probably saw on the website, treat no as a not now. Yeah. And it was my interactions with that leader that I reported to every day that taught me the value of don't internalize rejection and personalize everything that happens in the workplace. This has nothing to do with you. So how do you take no into not now and still get to your goals? And so I've had leaders who've taught me very valuable lessons. And so I choose to kind of take those quotes and those lessons and now teach them to others. But listen, like I said, I've had great bosses, but I've had some very toxic bosses as well. And so I've had to learn the hard way how to deal with those folks as well as the positive ones as well. Same.
And you hit on something that I feel strongly about. Not everyone has had this experience like we have, but I've had the lovely fortune of having some of these leaders become my very dear friends. And not just friends, but my advocates, my sounding boards, and the people that become my pillar of wisdom. And I'm going to check myself. And if I call this person, she's going to tell me, no, honey, this is a bad situation and you need to get out. Or no, you can push through this. This is not that hard. And sometimes you just need that little shake to just get you centered again. And I love that you hit on that, because I think people always assume there's a hierarchy in leadership, and they're often being friends makes things difficult. And I found it to be the opposite. Was that the same for you?
Indeed. I mean, most of my friendships came after I worked with someone for a while, but you're right. It's that trust and that relationship that builds that you can kind of get from, point A to point B. But I've also, even the leaders I call friends, I've had a healthy respect for the boundaries of being my boss at times, but also being very honest in terms of seeking their feedback. One thing I've always been told in my career, Lyndsay, you've probably been told in yours, is that, I kind of come to everything very transparent. Like if I want your feedback, if I'm seeking your honest opinion, if I need to work through a tough situation with somebody, I don't shy away from those kinds of conversations. And so that clarity of sort of communication, but also candor, has always been something that I've been told, hey, we really like that part, about how you work with us, but it also builds that trust and rapport that then turns into that friendship later on. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you just hit on one of my favorite words, which is trust. And it's been my experience that when you build that trust, whether you're the leader or you've got a leader that's doing it for you, you're so much more willing to stick your neck out for them. And, I know for me, that's how I built a lot of my best practices. They had the faith in me to go do my business, go do my job. And, I have you had that same, when you build the trust, you feel like I'm going to stick my neck out. I'm going to do something for this leader.
Absolutely. And they know, part of that trust is, hey, if I get it wrong, I got broad enough shoulders to say I got it wrong, and I'll recalibrate and fix it. And they always knew that was part of the trust equation, was I'm going to stick my neck out for you, but hey, I may not get it right all the time, but that's okay. Like, I'm going to be, it's not a blame game. It's a, hey, whatever just happened, I'm going to tell you about it, and then I'm going to go fix it. So they never had to worry about kind of, the other part of that equation. Sort of, it was like, nope, this is kind of the way we work together, and it's always worked well. But a lot of folks aren't willing to have the other part, which is they want the trust, but you got to build the trust with that leader, as well as, allowing your teams to build trust with you. Yeah. Absolutely.
I imagine you saw a lot of abuses of power in the places that you were in, and talk a little bit about that. And when you have a leader who mistakes leadership for power, what that does to the people around them.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I even had colleagues, look, Washington and Capitol Hill is all about, power. Information is power. And how do you use that power, for your gain against someone else, right? That's always the game. And I think I learned going over to the corporate side, both at Dunkin', but also working for the Restaurant Association, is, like I said, a great team and great leaders when you have it, but when you leave good and go somewhere else because it's a good advancement for your career, but you realize the grass is not always greener, that's a hard realization. So I've worked with bosses who were emotionally abusive, who, you can, and don't get me wrong, you can get every result that you seek. You can be as wildly as successful for the organization as you want, but there's that other side, the relationship of the person you got to work with every day who's toxic, who seeks to play, people against each other, who is emotionally abusive, but who also uses their power, and they're very unapologetic about it. They use their power, for their own gain at the expense of others. That was a very hard realization for me. Because I didn't see that on the Hill. I worked for great congressmen. At Dunkin', we just had a team that clicked. Like, we were just a fine old machine. Leaving environments where I've always had, the support and great bosses, and going somewhere where I didn't was hard. It was hard. It was hard.
I've experienced that too. And I see this with some of the people I coach, that it's not just hard, but it affects you physically. And I had a great analogy a friend said the other day to me. She said, when your boss calls and the phone rings, does the hair on your neck stand up on end, or are you excited to take the call? And it's such an easy visual of how do you feel about the environment you're in. And I imagine that had to be pretty similar for you, but what a shock to the system to go from so good to so toxic.
Well, and I knew at that point, when I dreaded the next phone call or the next email, when I saw the phone ring and I thought, I didn't think good thoughts. That was my time. That was my sign. It was time to go. Even though I enjoyed what I did, I loved my team and the people I worked with. That was my sign. It was time to go.
Yeah, I've been there. I feel that. So let's pivot a little bit. You talk about something called your you list. Tell me a little bit about identifying your you list. What does that mean?
Sure. Well, one thing I've learned, and I'm gonna know you're gonna say the same, because I know you found in your career, when you ask people what they bring to the table, or when you start talking to people about their personal value proposition, like I said, they immediately go to the results they've gotten in their job. And when you start bringing it really personal to them, that's a very hard conversation. So my conversation with all of my clients, but even people that I just even casually talk to, maybe on LinkedIn, or someone who reaches out for just, a quick question or two, is really diving deep into who you are outside of your job, because we are so conditioned to tie our value to our job that we have to start kind of breaking that down. Well, you list gives you the framework to break away from your job and to actually define yourself, who you are, that has nothing to do with your job. So if you left your job tomorrow, who are you still going to be? And the you list are 4 things: your value, your accomplishments, your contributions, and your lessons learned. Those 4 things are what's going to help you succeed every day in your current role. They're going to help you succeed in your next role. But those 4 things also are the definers of who you are and your differentiators that you bring to the table that no one else can. And so when you start really breaking down what is your value, you start breaking. And we pull out the whiteboards, we pull out the pen, pencil, and paper. I mean, we kind of roll up our sleeves and really write this down. And it's at first when we go through the 4, throw it all on the piece of paper, throw it all against the wall, and then let's refine. Because when you go for that promotion, you're going to use those 4 things. When you start doing the interviews for a new job, you're going to use those 4 things. When someone says, hey, what'd you do last year in your annual review? You're going to use those. I mean, it becomes the framework for really how you succeed where you are, but also where you're going. So that you list is something that very, very powerful that I've discovered, but it took me a long time to discover it because no one tells you, hey, you should go talk about yourself at work. And Lyndsay, you know, the first question I get when I say that to people is like, well, I don't want to brag. I'm like, this has nothing to do with bragging.
No.
Well, I don't want to seem as though I'm being competitive. This has nothing to do with being competitive. This is about you and nobody else.
I agree.
And so that you list is the framework to really flesh out your personal brand, your defining value, your differentiators. That's the framework to do so.
Yeah, Cicely, I see this often with people on LinkedIn, and I say all the time, you are not your job, and you are so much more than that. And as you're figuring out this next pivot, whether it's leaving a company or seeking a promotion or trying to get noticed, you have to round yourself out on LinkedIn. There are people that do it very, very well, and there are people that get hired to do just that. But I always get so sad when I see someone as like vice president of blah, and that's it. Because what I've learned just from creating content, people like the whole person. They like the whole story. They like the lessons you learned along the way that make you interesting. And everyone has their own perspective. So defining it that way is so brilliant. I give you so much credit for figuring out exactly how to do it, because I don't think a lot of people get it that way. So it's really smart.
And it takes a while for people to really work through even those 4 things. So I thank you for that. I see it all the time as well, which is why I purposefully start there with everyone, because it's a very revelatory question when you ask somebody, what is your personal value? And they can't answer it.
Well,
or they answer it in terms of, you know, this, and this. And I'm like, I don't want your cell numbers. I want to know, you know, how many, you know, accounts you like. It's hard. It's a hard question. And when they go silent, I know I've touched a nerve, and I know I now have their attention to be able to help them work through that. But you're right. It's not where we start, and it's a very conscious effort to actually work through that and do. But when people do the work, I mean, I just got an email on Friday from someone who was like, they've been in the program for 6 months. They're like, you've changed my life. Like the person had lost their job at the end of last year. So their confidence was shaken. They didn't work with a great team. They were in a toxic work environment, and they were lost. They were lost when they started the program in January. And now 6 months forward, they have a new job. They started their own business as well. So now they have multiple income streams. But when we first talked, and it was, I can't answer that question. I mean, they literally said to me, I can answer that question. And so to see that transformation in 6 months, Lyndsay, just, you know, that's the piece that people need that's the question they need to answer, but they're scared to do so.
Oh, that's so gratifying as a coach. I mean, gosh,
it's a blessing. I love it. Yeah. This is something that Lyndsay, another one of those career transitions that came my way that I did not seek, but talk about the blessing of a lifetime to be able to walk along people on their journey. There's nothing better.
I agree. It is just, it teaches you as much as it gives you joy. It's so cool. So bravo and congrats on that success. You talk about another concept, creating room for your voice. What does that mean?
It means so often we are reluctant to speak up. Part of it, and I'm big on language cues. I'm big on what is the exact language, because I can just say, hey, walk in a room and speak up, no one's going to do that. You actually need to give people the language cues to make it comfortable for them to actually start to find their voice. So that's a whole other process to work through. Is you have a perspective, opinion. Look, you have valuable experiences. You bring a lot to the table once you figure out what your value is. But just discovering what your value is, now you have to articulate it. So that's the next step, is once you find it, now how are you articulating it in all those different forums that we talked about? That's where the language cues come in, of actually finding their voice, because it can't be Cicely's words. I'm only helping you with the framework. Now you've got to put the words together to actually be able to find that the empowerment of your voice, but also understand the power of your voice once you find it. And that's the piece for people, that it's okay to do the framework, But then once they start putting into action, that's when I get the text messages or the calls. It's like, oh my God, it worked. And you're like, it does.
Oh.
And, but don't celebrate that it worked. Celebrate the fact that you found the voice that's been missing for you.
Right.
Celebrate the fact that your confidence was shaken and now you found the confidence in the voice. And like, celebrate you, not the fact that the framework worked. So the finding the voice, creating room for your voice, it is the next step after you identify your you list of how do you actually now live that out every day. And that's where you create room for your voice, but you also step into your power. We have a lot of power within us.
Right.
And what I always want to talk about after you find your voice is you have a lot of power. Don't give it away, because if you ever give it away, you can't get it back. But then how does your voice and your power really start to show up in amazing ways? Those are the aha moments where I'm blown away and the person I'm working with is blown away as well.
Well, I think when you define your you can stand so firmly in your power and you know where you're coming from. You're not grasping at straws trying to get people to listen to a soundbite. You become so grounded. And I love when I see that transformation for people where they're like, no, damn it, I'm really good at this. I am an expert on this topic and I don't need to apologize and I don't need to, say, excuse me. I can take the floor. I can say my piece confidently. And it's so
stop apologizing.
Don't make yourself small. Yeah. We could talk for hours on that. I mean, it's so important.
This is the beginning of a great friendship and a longer conversation. I can tell.
I think so. I really do. I mean, for women especially, I think not apologizing is becoming a more embraced conversation. But what do you say to women about that? Because I know what I say, but I want to hear what you say. This is all along the veins of not making yourself small.
It's so funny you should ask that question because I go live on LinkedIn and YouTube every Monday and Thursday. And I do free career coaching. You can join me for 20 minutes on LinkedIn or YouTube. And I did a free career coaching video on LinkedIn. People can go find it on my profile. Stop apologizing. And the comments I got on that video, Lyndsay, I was so surprised at the comments and the private messages that I got after doing that video. And I thought, oh, wow, I've touched a little bit of a nerve here.
Saying?
But, well, it's filler words. We find comfort in the fact that we're apologizing. So, even, hey, sorry, I'm late. Everybody knows you're late. We just saw you join the Zoom call later. We just saw you just don't even, just acknowledge it and move on. Right. Yeah. And so part of that video was also, here's the right way. Instead of saying, I'm sorry in an email for getting back to you. Hey, forgive my late reply. Thanks for your patience with my reply. It's the acknowledgement, not the apology.
Yes.
So replace apology words with an acknowledgement. And people, and I, said this on the video, but I said the people who responded to me, I'm like, when you apologize, you do make yourself small, but your colleagues are tired of hearing you say my apologies and I'm sorry, or my fault. People get tired of hearing it because you're actually projecting a lack of confidence.
Yes.
You're projecting very much a lack of professionalism, but you're also undermining your own credibility. And people,
you took the words out of my mouth.
To me were like, I didn't realize that. And I was like, you actually are self-sabotaging yourself by the words you use, and people don't realize it. Now, it's, and someone said to me, actually, I was on a video this week and a guy reached out to me actually in the comments, was like, hey, I still watch that apology video. Like, I still make sure when I'm typing an email, your apology videos in the back of my mind. Like, don't say I'm sorry. Don't say my apologies. And so it's funny that, I don't know, a month later, that video still comes up in comments from people. And I'm just like, wow.
It's such a bad habit, right? It's such a bad habit.
It is.
And you use the words I was going to say out loud, which was you're undermining your credibility. And, I hate when I hear people, sorry if I sound like an expert. No, you're the expert. Be the expert. Own it. It's okay. Take it and run with it.
Yeah.
Don't apologize for the stuff that you
don't
spent a
apologize
lifetime
for
to learn. It's Oh, yes.
Well, listen, and you and you're on the same page. I mean, I said the same thing about imposter syndrome. People are like, oh, I feel like an imposter. I'm like, why? You've done the work, you put in the time. Like, why do you feel like you don't deserve to be somewhere? No. Like, lean into the fact that you are an expert and you are an authority and you do deserve to be at that table. It's a mindset shift, though. The I'm sorries, my apologies. Oh, I feel like I don't belong. It's a mindset shift, but it's so easy to go there for people. And it's like, no, I'm going to pull you back here. But you're right. It's a habit, but it's I don't think people understand how they are perceived when they do that.
No, I agree. All right. One more question for you. How do you be a person of impact? It's a big one.
Okay. Well, and it's funny because people are like, you get really energized, like, oh my gosh, like this one, I literally could go bounce off the walls because this was the secret. I literally just started teaching this, the I strategy, the impact strategy in my program last Monday. If championing yourself, finding your value gets you to the table, impact is how you stay there. Being a person of impact, people want to be around others who have impact. So look, there are a couple of different ways I tell people to do that, but the very basic way of how to be a person of impact is you have to help people get to yes. And the way you do that, and I actually told a story last week and somebody about fell out of their chair about how I figured out the power of impact, but helping people get to yes, it's so easy to tell somebody they're wrong, or it's so easy to be a yes person and just go along with what someone's saying. But when you're in your professional setting in the workplace every day, the most powerful thing you can do is say, I understand your goal, but let me give you an alternative way to reach that goal that may be more profitable, maybe more efficient, maybe a better use of resources, but actually challenging status quo thinking, helping people still get to yes, but get to yes in a different way is one of the most powerful ingredients and secret weapons I've found in my career. So when you want to be a person of impact, you want to be at that table, but it's what you say and how you act once you get there that creates that tangible, lasting impact. And there are three ways to do that. One way is to help people get to yes. And when you challenge status quo thinking, you're opening up opportunity because now you're giving people solutions, alternatives. And who doesn't love to be around somebody that brings solutions and a different perspective to the conversation than just everybody agreeing, yeah, that's okay. And then you're off, kind of the same old conversation. When you bring the perspective and a different angle, a different part of the conversation to the table, people just open up. It's not about, Lyndsay, whether you're right or wrong. It's the value of showing people a different way to get to the same endpoint, but in a very different way than what they'd envisioned. It is like a firecracker in your career. Like, it's like I told somebody last week, it's the jet fuel. It's the rocket ship that will propel you. It'll propel your career in ways you can't even imagine.
Oh, I love that.
See how worked up I get? See how excited I get?
I love that so much. And
I say I'm sorry. See, I got to take that out of my vocabulary. It is truly one of those I stumbled upon at Dunkin that I'm so purposeful about now. Yeah. But the power of it is now you got to be willing to kind of go down that road. And that's why I'm coaching through the impact strategy now. But when you're a person of impact and you can actually see tangibly, how you show up every day and what you do, people around you notice. They notice. And that
I'll tell you, I learned this lesson early in my career, but I learned it in a much less eloquent way than what you described. I was one of my first corporate jobs. And, I was so excited to be a part of a team and I was like a sponge picking up everything. And I would run into my manager's office and I'd say, this is wrong. And this is broken and this doesn't work. And she'd sit and she'd listen, very patient. And I repeated this over and over again. And then finally she said, Lyndsay, you're so astute with your observations. You come up with such interesting points and so many things that we should be focused on, but you never bring me solutions. Mic drop. I felt like the biggest schmuck. I'm like, I'm the girl who bitches. I haven't offered anything constructive. How awful that all I've been doing is complaining. And so I never made that mistake again. And anytime I saw that something was wrong or something needed to be fixed, before I would vocalize that, I had to come with a solution. And it was such a gift to get that lesson and to be so humiliated and so embarrassed, which she didn't mean to do. It was just me recognizing what a dummy I am. But I taught that to everyone I've ever managed since. And I said, I will listen to you all day long if you've got something that's wrong, but give me a way to fix it. And I just think it's such a brilliant way to vocalize impact and to say, I thought of another way. I think we can fix this by XYZ. And so I love that.
But what I love about your story is you took it as, oh yeah, that's right. Like it was constructive feedback that you corrected. A lot of people that I talk to scurry away thinking, oh no, I've just been kind of corrected and reprimanded, and they never try it again. And that's why I say, no or constructive feedback, it's not a personal rejection. Take it and get better. Like it's actually a gift that person said that to you. And I have a very similar story as well that I share in the book that, same thing where I was like, that piece of feedback is gold. And it's what led me to figure out the impact is the way to go. So I'm with you. That a powerful moment that you learned from. So many of us miss the learning in that example.
But you're so much more pleasant to be around when you're bringing a positive idea. Now, if you get rejected at every turn, every time you bring forth a positive idea, it's going to feel old and tired, and you're not going to want to work for that person anymore. But if you've got someone who's receptive and willing to listen, woo, then it gets exciting. And you have that opportunity to be impactful. Love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So Cicely, please tell everyone, how can they find you?
Sure. So my website has information about the book and the coaching and pretty much the website's always the place to go. It's cicelysimpson.com. But for folks who are, listening to this, you can also find me at connect.cicely.me. Literally just put connect.cicely.me in your internet browser, and pops up as well. And of course, look, I'm on all the socials. A lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn and Instagram or YouTube, and my YouTube channel. I have free career tips, videos galore there for people to just consume as they want. So easy to find on my website, but also on all the socials as well.
Well, Cicely, these points are gold. Your stuff that's out on the socials. I mean, I was scouring your website and I was just like, holy cow, this is awesome. So it has been such a joy having you here. Thank you for being a wonderful guest. And guys, check out Cicely. If you are making that career pivot, if you need some pearls of wisdom, she's got dozens. So please check her out. And thank you so, so much. This was so much fun.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much. I look forward to many more conversations with you. This is great.
Cheers to that. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Take care. Thanks for listening to Heartbeat for Hire. If you like what you hear, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and leave a 5-star review. To keep the conversation going, you can find me on Insta or at LinkedIn at Lyndsay Dowd, H4H, or you can reach me at my website, heartbeatforhire.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day.